Hey, how's it going, folks? So if you've clicked on this video, then you've probably saw the initial Persona 5 review, which I hope you've all enjoyed a lot, and you want to know what I thought of like certain moments in the story, or if there was anything else I couldn't cover in the review because I wanted to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. Which I hope I have done okay at. I realize I did spoil a fair bit with Kamoshida and all that. But yeah, that was just to give you a general idea of what the ultimate goal is. Alright, so without further ado, I'll give you my extended thoughts on Persona 5. So the first thing I want to cover is the Confidants. The initial idea of the Confidants is to expand the characters' arcs a little more, and just to give you a general idea of this kind of person they are, and you see them grow as you increase your rank. But the thing that I actually kind of agree with Super Butterbuns for, and because she had a special guest that made a really good point about some of the Confidants, is that there are a couple that sort of focus on random people in the Confidant rather than, you know, the actual person you're hanging out with. So with Makoto as an example, the focus on her Confidant is this girl named Eiko, who's being emotionally manipulated by her pimp boyfriend who looks a lot older, and he starts owing money to some shady people. And then there's An's Confidant, which focuses on this bitchy rival model named Mika. So the focus on them and, you know, the quarrels between the Confidants, it's not quite as impressive as some of the other Confidants, because like that you watch those characters grow. You do see characters like Makoto and An grow, but it's not as prevalent there as someone like Yusuke, whose main Confidant story is just trying to get out of his slump. But I will say that was better than someone like Chihaya or Oya, because I mean, I can only assume anyway, because I didn't really bother with them because their rewards were just not particularly useful to me. Oya more so than Chihaya, as I looked at Chihaya's Confidant ranks, like abilities that you gain, and a couple of them actually looked kind of useful, but I never got to use them in the end because I had other Confidants I cared more about. For Oya, on the other hand, she was just entirely useless, because the sneaking around is just far too easy to do. As I said in the initial review, I've never gotten the little alert meter to 100%, so I never got to see what happens if you reach there. I can only assume that you get kicked out of the palace, and then you have to go back another day. And just with Oya, all that she does is just soften the penalty. She makes it a bit easier for you not to get caught so easily, and she'll like make the alert level not so drastic. It's just not particularly useful. But I did also like that even though the characters are in pretty dire situations, that they are still able to crack jokes and, you know, be witty and funny. You know, their lives are practically on the line when someone like Sae or Shido are threatening them, and yeah, they can still be a little upbeat about it, and they are a bit concerned about the time limit, but you assure them pretty easily that, you know, you got plenty of time and you can complete the palaces and you can still have time to hang out. That was cool. I really liked that. Yeah, the only character I didn't really like was Morgana, this like little toy cat-looking thing, or the monster cat, as a few of the Phantom Thieves like put it. Yeah, I just really don't like him. He's a narcissistic, pompous asshole that just he thinks that he's the core of the Phantom Thieves. He even says that at one point in the game, and that really pissed me off because no, you know, he's not the core of the Phantom Thieves. He just happened to be there while Joker and Ryuji were just trying to escape Kamoshida's castle. But because of that, because he taught them the basic maneuvers and all that, he thinks he's the sole reason the Phantom Thieves exist. And unfortunately, all the other characters think that way too, which made that whole ending scene where he's floating away, like that just, it didn't seem deserved. It didn't seem like Morgana deserved all that attention. It's like he didn't really do much, and yeah, frankly, I think Ryuji is right. Like around the middle of the game, it's a bit early to talk about this, but around the middle of the game, Ryuji sort of pisses Morgana off by saying that he's useless and Futaba is great, and yeah, he's kind of right. It's like Futaba is a hacker who can sort of manipulate the palaces and the information on absolutely anyone, whereas Morgana, yeah, he's just there. It's like he didn't really do much. I mean, he can still fight okay, which I will give him credit for that, because the one thing Futaba can't do is actual combat, whereas Morgana does, and he is a good healer at the very beginning, but then once you start getting healing abilities with other party members, like Makoto, who's able to do almost the exact same healing powers that Morgana does, yeah, I rarely used him. So I rarely used him. Maybe on the occasional boss fight, well, not even then. I think I only used him on the Shido boss fight and on my first playthrough, maybe at the final boss, but yeah, he just was not useful to me. Yeah, I really didn't want to harp on him like this too much, but he just really did piss me off. And that whole middle where he's pissed, he's angry, and he's leaving the Phantom Thieves temporarily, that was completely not needed. It just padded the story out by a couple of hours, which was already padded as it was with the Hawaii break, which was nice. It was a nice little distraction from, exploring 4 palaces beforehand, but that part went on a little too long. Just that whole middle was just not necessary at all. And the whole thing with Haru getting into the metaverse is never explained. It's never explained how she got there, or how she got the app in the first place. Presumably Igor gave it at some point without anyone knowing. That just seemed to rely too much on fate at that point. And while on the subject of Haru, I didn't find her to be a particularly interesting character. So she was, aside from Morgana, she was my least favorite of the Phantom Thieves. Yeah, she was just kind of a dull, pretty girl. Essentially, she's just there. She's a lot better at combat. I do really like her in combat. She kicks a lot of ass with her axe. And the grenade launcher, while I didn't use it that much, it does pack a lot of heat. But her character herself was just not very interesting. The backstory she has, where she's put into this forced political marriage, that was quite intriguing. But after that, she was just kind of boring. The only thing I liked about Haru was her musketeer outfit, which I thought looked pretty cool. And she has this like badass deadly gaze when she awakens to her persona. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Although she does have a very funny line, which unfortunately you can't even see unless you date multiple girls. So if you make Haru your girlfriend and someone else, then when it comes to Valentine's Day at the end of the game, and she sees that you've cheated on her, and she just angrily gives you her Valentine's chocolate, the line she says is, "Yeah, please take my chocolate before I crush it." That was funny. That was really funny. I liked that. So I wanted more lines like that for Haru. So I thought that was really good. But there just wasn't enough, or if at all, in the main story. And I think Haru's character was just lacking somewhat. I think the issue was probably because of how late she came into the game. It's like she doesn't come until around the 5th palace, which is, by that point, you're already over halfway through the game. And then you've got like 2 main palaces left before you get to Mementos in the end. And yeah, she just came in far too late. But not so much with Akechi, but I'll come back to him in a moment. Now, when you actually get Haru, it's in the biggest pain in the ass palace in the game, in my opinion anyway. I mean, Kanashiro's bank was pretty annoying with the enemies like constant attacking. Then they get like more than 1 attack per turn. It's like that got really annoying after a while. But the space station just really pissed me off because of the repelling against attacks, and just the Arabakis, I think they're called. Those enemies were just so prevalent and persistent. They just made the palace completely fall apart gameplay wise. Like they were just such a pain to deal with. And not to mention all the enemies in that palace were robots, which wasn't as creative or exciting as the number of demons or monsters that we found in the palaces prior. I don't know, just the whole thing just seemed kind of boring. It's like even traveling through the palace wasn't particularly that interesting. The conveyor belt thing got a little old after a while, where you have to keep setting like different lunch breaks and you have to get to the next platform before it starts moving again. It just took a long while, and that space puzzle where you get sucked through various vacuums and you have to transport yourself. That on my first playthrough, that took me an hour to do. It was so confusing. At the start, it wasn't so bad, but then when the locks kept gradually changing every time you moved, it got really frustrating because I just could not figure out what I was doing. I managed to do it okay on my second playthrough, but I think that was more on luck than actual, thinking. Yeah, so the next palace was Sae's Casino, which I was a bit peeved I couldn't show off in the initial review because just because of that message in the top right corner that says, "You steal Sae Nijima's heart." Just that one spoiler alone would have ruined it. That would have completely destroyed some of the story, which was a bit of a shame, but at least I could show off the battles. The casino was actually one of my favorite palaces in the game. I thought it was very visually interesting, and some of the monsters could be pretty cool, although the only thing I hated about it was the dark room, where you're surrounded by a bunch of Rongdas and other very tough monsters that could instantly kill you. And in fact, it actually happened at one point after I came out of the dark room. Someone cast Despair on me, and they did another attack that instantly killed me because I had the Despair status. I showed this off in the initial review, but I just wanted to further emphasize how irritating that was and how bullshit that all was. Yeah, so I had to keep going back through the dark room multiple times because I kept dying by various means. It just got so annoying. But other than that, the palace itself was pretty interesting. And after that palace is completed, this introduces us to Akechi's betrayal. And now, everybody who has played this game has pointed this out in one way or another. But yeah, the betrayal of Akechi was completely freaking obvious. It was that you could see it coming a mile away, and yeah, that was just no surprise at all, because he's quite shifty when you first meet him, and at the start he says that he hates the well, not that he hates the Phantom Thieves, but he disagrees with them. He fully disagrees with the Phantom Thieves' way of justice. In a way, he's sort of like Yagami in a way from Death Note. He enacts on justice in his own murderous, dark way, because yeah, it turns out he's the Black Mask that's been using the metaverse for evil. At the end, when he's revealed and you fight him, he goes completely psychotic, much like Yagami does at the end of Death Note. Spoilers for those who haven't seen it. But yeah, this was... Yeah, it was not surprising at all. But I mean, the fight itself was pretty cool, and it was kind of cool to have some sort of traitor in the mix, but it was just kind of obvious. And then this leads up to this super complicated plan that the team have to come up with to break Joker out of jail. And what they basically did was that they had to give Akechi's phone to Sae so that Futaba could hack into the phone and activate the metaverse, so that Sae can go into the metaverse when she heads back into the interrogation room, where she then finds a Phantom Joker or Shadow Joker, whatever you want to call it, and they somehow managed to find this perfect copy of him in order to kill off. I'm not sure how he feels about being shot in the head by Akechi, but it doesn't matter, he's a shadow, so yeah, whatever. And when I first played this, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, I followed the plan itself okay, but I had a few questions. But then the more I thought about it after playing the game a second time and watching my brother go through it, things started to make a little more sense. But there was one tiny detail that I couldn't understand, and that was, why couldn't Sae still understand Morgana? Yeah, that never gets addressed, because anybody that goes into the metaverse can understand Morgana. He speaks in English, otherwise you would just hear meowing. But even though Sae technically went inside the metaverse, she still heard meowing. So why was that? Why could she still not understand Morgana? It's not entirely important in the end, because Sae is not really that major of a character. I mean, she does help him out, but she's one of the lesser important characters. But I don't know, that was the only thing I noticed that was wrong with that plan. But it still manages to work in the end, because yeah, they managed to break Joker out of jail and fool Akechi. But yeah, going back to his betrayal as well, that was something else that if you've been paying attention, you might actually be able to catch early on, is that when you first meet Akechi in the TV studio, and everyone beforehand is talking about where they want to go after the field trip, but Morgana mentions something about a pancake restaurant, and then when Akechi comes in, he's like, "Oh, are you guys going out for pancakes?" So yeah, instantly you can tell he was up to something, because he shouldn't have been able to understand Morgana at that point. But anyway, after the breakout, we go into Shido's palace, and by the end of it, this leads us to easily the best scene in the game. It's his calling card. I mean, it was somewhat obvious that they were going to perform a grand spectacle in some way, like towards the end of the game with a particularly big target, but it was still really badass. I love seeing all the Phantom Thieves come together on this giant jumbo screen, and they're in this badass silhouette, and then Joker starts coming in and saying like maybe a total of 9 words that we've never heard him say otherwise. But it was still really, really cool, and I look forward to that scene every single time, and I keep replaying it as well. It was just so cool. And the fight itself, I actually found the fight against Shido to be harder than the final boss, because he has multiple phases, and he's just pretty persistent to kill you. Some of the designs were pretty neat, although his actual costume was a bit silly, and the muscles were even sillier, because they sort of reminded me of Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear Rising, where he's all super jacked up, and I'm surprised he didn't say like Nanomachine Son or anything like that. It was still a cool fight regardless of how silly it was, and the music that plays, Rivers in the Desert, that was a really cool boss battle music. It's the first time you hear it in the game, and it just really set the tone very well. And then after you defeat Shido, you're kind of forced to go into Mementos after a certain amount of days. This I wasn't a big fan of, because not only is it required to complete all 60 or so floors of the game in order to finish the story, but you also don't get a warning of some kind, so you're not prompted to complete all Confidants or do whatever you need to before you head in. So I would have liked that. I would have liked a little bit of a warning beforehand, so that way I could mentally prepare myself and prepare myself with the characters, get all the equipment I need. I mean, you can go into the pawn shop and go see Dr. Takami for medical supplies and healing items that you need, but those are the only 2 places you can go at that certain point in the game. You can't upgrade any of your confidants' ranks at all, so if you got anybody to rank 9 and you were just on the verge to rank 10, then yeah, sorry to say, you missed your chance. You're not getting it to rank 10. And I had that happen when I was trying to rank up Futaba. I got her to rank 9, and I was ready to get her to rank 10 the next time I met her, but unfortunately I ran out of days and I couldn't get her to rank 10 and see what her upgraded persona was. So I don't know, maybe in New Game Plus I'll be able to, but that was kind of a shame. The final area itself, though, after clearing Mementos, that was kind of creepy, but also quite eerie, and it was just kind of a neat area. I liked that it was focusing on the general public rather than one particular person's distorted desire. I thought that was a nice little change of pace, and it was quite disturbing as well, especially seeing the people in cages and past people that you've confronted against, like Kamoshida, Kaneshiro, and Madarame. The only thing I wasn't crazy about was the moment afterwards where you have to get everyone back and have them escape the Velvet Room. This is where we find out that Morgana was actually created by Igor. In a way, it was his purpose to form the Phantom Thieves and to stop the inevitable ruin, aka Yaldabaoth, or the fake Igor that's eventually revealed. And the final boss itself was kind of a cliche, because you know, in every RPG you just fight some almighty god that's there to ruin the world and just be a massive dick about everything. But the fight itself was kind of cool, and my god, Ann's Blazing Hell ability just completely destroyed it. And on top of that, there was also Ryuji's God Hand ability, and if you chose to have them, the concentrate abilities and the other one for physical attacks, I can't quite remember the name of it, charge, that was it. And that on top of Ryuji's God Hand ability was super powerful, but not as much as Ann's Blazing Hell ability. You have to be level 75 in order to get it, but once you do, yeah, it was super powerful and very helpful. It tore the boss apart like tissue paper. And luckily there was a spot I could grind to do so, because they gave like 10,000 experience. It was in the room right before the final boss. There were these really powerful enemies guarding chests. Yeah, they really helped a lot. I had to do it. I had to keep fighting them a few times to get to level 75, but it was pretty damn useful once I eventually got there. That was one thing I wasn't crazy about either, was that as soon as you get past level 75 or so, you've pretty much got every character's abilities. There wasn't any sort of motivation to get to level 99 apart from increasing your health and your SP, which was kind of a shame. You don't get like a super duper powerful ability that completely breaks the game, but I guess it's not too much of a loss. I mean, there's not really much reason to get to level 99 anyway, because you can probably defeat the super bosses pretty easily at that point, or at least you can manage a bit. But anyway, that was the final boss, and then we get the ending. Man, good lord, I had all sorts of like warm and fuzzy feelings with this one. I had not been so satisfied clearing a game, and it got a little sad at some points as well, because I had to say goodbye to all of these people I have come to know for the past 70 to 90 hours. And it was just kind of, you know, it's kind of heartbreaking a little bit. And I loved the ending scene where they take Joker to a completely different area. I mean, it could be seen as kind of kidnapping, I guess, but yeah, it was just nice to see them hang out just one last time before Joker heads home, presumably anyway. We never actually see him go back. But the ending in general was just really great. I loved that it forced the player to just say goodbye to all these people. Well, I mean, it didn't necessarily force you to. You could just be a total douche and just go straight to Sojiro and say, yeah, I'm ready to leave. But yeah, they do give you some New Game Plus items if you get them to rank 10, and that I haven't gotten a chance to use them yet, but I will do at some point while I'm going through New Game Plus. And the only thing that was particularly weird about it was when you visit Lavenza at the end of the game, and when you get to Caroline and Justine to rank 10, yeah, she confesses her love for you, which was a little strange, but yeah, because she's like a child, but presumably anyway, she could be maybe thousands of years old, but you know, who knows? We're never told, but it still came across as a little weird. And so I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about Persona 5, with the extended thoughts on top of that. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and the initial review that I posted a little less than a week ago. And I hope you guys will enjoy the Kingdom Hearts 358 Days Over 2 video. That one's coming together quite nicely. Got the voiceovers done already. I just need to put it all together and get the camera bits done. But good lord, that was a pain of a game to go through. But you'll see when the actual video comes out. So thank you very much for watching all of these videos, and take care.